So this also gives us that ability to do it
Flexibility.
within the budget that the community set.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And like I said, I think it's good. I just, I mean, the community looked at the bond really closely and were afraid that some of our numbers were too high. And I just want us to be mindful going forward when we make these estimations that I don't, being a little bit off the mark is fine. It just seems really, really big. But I am glad that it's in the right direction and that we'll be able to use those funds better to, like you say, maybe go in and add some where we need them and
Yes,
have
ma'am.
some flexibility, so.
Yeah, maybe we need to find a different consultant for the pricing. So, but yeah, this is one of the big things that we had a lot of discussion about was
Absolutely.
inflating numbers and having all this contingency. And got 10 million of it already, and we just got started. So, yeah.
Yep. Mr. Burdine.
Is it not true that by using some higher quality, newer versions of cameras, we're able to lessen the numbers of cameras as well, since has that changed since since the bond, or?
Well, it hasn't changed since the bond. The consultant was bidding a certain brand of camera that was more expensive than the ones we're going to acquire. It doesn't mean the quality is any different. It's just a different brand of camera. So when we started this entire process, we actually started with about 200 cameras in mind for every high school. And so our consultant showed us a different way to configure things and cut it down to about 100 cameras. So throughout this whole process, we've looked for ways to become more efficient and effective and with the least amount of equipment and procurement we could.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, do we have other questions on this one?
Just,
Mrs. Bailey?
just one. On the installations, you're going to start with the high schools. I would imagine that doesn't really mess up with the school days, since
It's all going to be after school.
Oh, you're going to do it all after school?
We have to, because the cabling is going to go in first, okay? And then once the cabling is in the ceiling, then we can come back and put a camera in. But that's going to be in the hallways, people up on ladders, maybe up on lifts. And so we don't want to do that while the students are in session, the drilling, the banging, things like that. So we're working with a contractor, with the vendors now, and actually a protocol, a system to allow them into the school buildings after hours, make sure somebody's there with them, and they work up until a certain time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else on this one? All right. Thank you, Chief. Next is our Cisco network infrastructure. So this is more of what we saw in January. Is that right?
That is correct. In January, we have the E-rate portion of it. This is the remainder of the equipment that is needed to complete the backbone upgrades in order to handle the data, and also all of the equipment to handle the wireless itself.
What Mrs. Bailey's going to hold you accountable for. All right, any questions on this?
Of
Mrs.
course.
Bailey?
Of course.
Yes, ma'am.
NetSync.
Yes, ma'am.
They seem to be our go-to. Is it just pricing or suppliers, or because it's Cisco?
Actually, it's all the above, and we do have a tally, a scorecard for how we arrive at the selection.
There's not, because you only got, 3 bids?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it seems like it's not, I don't know, doesn't seem like there's a lot of firms out there that can handle the volume that
No,
we
ma'am.
have.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay,
In
thank you.
Cisco, we have had good experience with them, providing us with the right tools and things like that.
Thank you.
Looks like you have 2 firms listed here for the
The design.
design part. How does that work? How can you have 2 people designing the same thing?
So we have 2 different design. One is the core design, and the other one is the wireless design. So we want to make sure that we have the best of each, providing the design for us.
All right, so one specializes in one thing and one does the other
The core
thing.
in that's correct, ma'am. Because the core will contain the data center in there as well. So that's why we want to make sure that they can provide that specialty.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions on this one? Yes, Mrs. Bailey?
It's late. So NetSync is doing the wireless? You said it was broken up into two. Just-
We'll
you're
have to
just-
refer to JoJo. 'Cause I
Hello,
don't wanna-
JoJo.
So NetSync is the equipment piece, but they're also in the professional services part of the bid as well.
Are they going to do, Mr. Pham said there's two parts to it. I guess the reason why I'm asking is Presidio had a low score on purchase price. So what part are they going to be doing?
Presidio will be doing the design and professional services. That is a dual award. So like Long was saying, we have the option to use one or the other, depending on what we're designing, and the professional service piece. Now, the equipment portion is only awarded to NetSync.
Yeah, I understand that, but
So she's asking, do you know which part of the project, which of those firms is going to do, or is that still to be determined?
As far as the equipment, we obviously will buy from NetSync, but we would award the project based on. So when we start designing the project, and we're going to go with the proposal to both of the vendors, and they're going to provide us resumes for the engineers that will be expertise, that will have the expertise. Based on that, we might find out that okay, for wireless design, that Presidio happens to have the better engineer qualification based on experience, based on prior projects that have been done, then we will award it to the appropriate vendor based on that.
Okay, so unlike the facility, the architects we just heard from, they did that as part of their process, so they could then assign the projects right away. You haven't done that part yet, and so you're going to do that in the next phase.
And it involved interviewing the candidate as well, so that way we make sure that we get the correct expertise.
Got it. Got it? We can talk later. Okay. All right. Anything else on this one? So next is the consultant, the strategic educational technology consultant.
I have a question. They're not from Louisiana, are they?
No, sir. They're from
Right.
Dallas.
Thank you.
Not
Why is
everyone
that?
from Louisiana is bad.
All right.
I missed that one.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do we know about this consultant? Do we have, can we get some kind of write-up on what their philosophies are, or as far as educational technology? It'd be nice to know where they're coming from, what they think, what they believe in.
Sure, we can get them to provide that information. They have done, from what I understand, is thousands of these already, in terms of ISD doing exactly the same things we're asking them to do. I think one of the recent one is Dr. Hill experienced with them at Colleen. So she does have provided a personal experience with them.
Yes, and I heard him speak at a something.
Asby?
That you probably could answer if it were 9 o'clock
Named
instead of
Andrew
11.
Burning, and he's
Oh, is this a guy who used to be at Carrollton?
yes,
sir.
Okay, I
That
know
is
who he
correct.
I've
Yeah.
heard him too. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He is good.
And the thing was that whatever we wrote, I mean, it's all of his philosophies on the memo that I provided to you.
Yeah, it's in the Friday memo. There's a little bit about him.
Yeah.
Would you like for more detail? Yes, sir.
I have a foundational question.
Yes.
Why do we need a consultant for this?
Basically, we want to make sure that we capture what is the standard, national standard as well as state standard, and blend it and integrate it with what we would like to see and our needs for the 21st century classroom.
And I got a real flavor, sorry to interrupt you if I am. I got a real flavor that this was more around the instructional curriculum
That's correct, ma'am.
component. Really trying to get your mind around that versus just the functional, how to make your device work.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it's a
Yes.
tool set. That's what we're looking for.
If I may,
Yes, Ms.
interject.
Dr. Hill.
one of the things that I like about Dr. Burney is that his philosophy meshes with the philosophy that I believe we want to embrace, where technology is not something students learn or that we address separately, but it becomes a vehicle in an integrated mode for learning. And we've been kind of treading water for a little while, so I think that's something that he can bring us up to speed quickly because he has worked with so many school districts. And I didn't have anything to do with the selection. I wasn't on the committee, but I did run into him at TASA, and I knew we were looking for someone, and I told him we were looking for someone and grabbed his card and told him he might want to keep an eye out as we began to look, because I knew he was very credible.
I would add to Ms. Tassan, your last question about why we need a facilitator at all. I would say if you look at the scope of work of what this facilitator is going to do, and the technology is one of the hottest issues we're dealing with right now. Like you mentioned earlier, we're behind in many ways.
Yes.
We just don't have anyone on our team with the bandwidth to
And that was
tackle
really
that,
my question, yeah.
to really tackle that.
So that was really my question, because that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering. So,
And frankly, sometimes, like we found in the last year, sometimes kind of the whole profit in its own hometown concept comes to bear. If we have people who've been part of this system for so long, trying to do this visioning that's so extensive, it's just better to have that external view. And I think the community, through the focus groups, through the big meetings, the community dialogue meetings, they interact better when they know it's an independent source that they can come to, and that's helping with the work.
yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, that really answers it, and that was really kind of what I was getting at, is do we have anybody on board that could do it? So I asked that question to sort of lead into this question, what are we going to do going forward? Because obviously, these things are going to change, and we are a little behind, behind the 8 ball on this, so we
I
are,
mean, in terms of the planning?
yeah, planning going forward. I mean, are we going to, I assume we don't want to use them indefinitely. They're coming in to do this.
It's like everything else we're doing. We have a really solid facilities master plan in place that we hired a consultant to help us with, and now we're maintaining it. And we may decide in 6 or 7, 8 or 9 years, we want to have someone come in and kind of refresh that with us. But up to then, now that it's in place and moving, it's up to us to do the refresh and the annual work on
So
it.
they're going to give us a plan that moves forward several years, and we're going to maintain that plan and just make sure that and maybe at that time, we'll have someone on board that can help us.
We'll have the district going in the right direction, I think.
Okay.
In fact, that's what distinguished them from the rest of the consultants, because they have an actual phase plan.
Yeah.
They say, as a matter of fact, Dr. Benning says that if we don't do a phase plan, we're doomed to fail.
Yeah, exactly. So that was why my question was that. Are we just going to have him come in and do this one-time thing, and then what happens next year when everything changes? So,
Yeah, and I think considering the last big initiative we had, it'd be good to have somebody with actual credibility this time.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're ready to move on then to elevator services. Do we have any questions on the elevator services?
It's a very uplifting topic.
Yes. But after Dr. Dupree's comment about bandwidth, you really couldn't, it's hard to leave it.
it's 11:05.
Library furniture and cabinetry for elementary school 46, or should I say Madden Elementary? Madden Elementary.
Why wasn't millwork part of the construction cost?
Doggone it, someone.
It normally is, and it was not included.
Why?
No, it's not before my time. I am struggling to get a straight answer on that one, but as soon as I do, I will let you know.
Yeah, whose fault is it?
Well,
Right for the moment, it's Mr. Cleaver's fault.
Right.
I'll take that.
You
I'll
should
take
ask
hit.
that later.
I'm sorry.
Should ask that later.
Okay.
All right. Library furniture, okay, so any more questions about millwork? Moving on to school furniture. And do we have a life cycle replacement plan for school furniture? This is particularly for Madden Elementary, but in general, are we on a life replacement cycle? Or?
No, ma'am, I don't think we have a specific life cycle for furniture. I think it's replaced on sort of an as-needed basis at this time.
And how do we decide if it's needed?
The furniture that I have seen that finally gets auctioned off, it's time. I don't know how else to quantify. I'm not trying to be coy. We keep it until, we put new feet on it, we put new bolts in it until it's just not serviceable anymore.
That's one of our long-range, that's in direct response to some of the board's core beliefs, is that we have placement plans in place, and we're like with technology and anything else, we need clear refresh, because we really do make principals beg and plead. This is where it's been. Because a lot of organizations don't strategically plan for that replacement, but we're not.
And it certainly doesn't justify it, but it's the same way in every district I've been in. Furniture just doesn't make it up the list in terms of prioritization from a planning perspective.
Well, I guess some of it has a long life cycle, but nevertheless, it seems that this should be, just like you talk about, we replace so many library books every year. It just seems logical that would be part of the plan, part of the cycle. Mr. Rice, do you have a question?
Mr. Cleaver, I was just going to ask you about the furniture itself. Is this furniture flexible? Does it have wheels on it? Can they move the desks around to form larger work surfaces, that kind of thing?
Dr. Whitbeck has formed a new school task force, and one of the people on it is Bob Fazakerly and many of the curriculum folks, and they are working on that very thing.
Yes, Mr. Rice, we've talked a few times tonight about the 21st century classroom, and the kind of furniture bid that FBISD has had in the past is a very traditional kind of classroom furniture bid for the 20th century classroom. And what we have to develop in a new bid that we are going to get out on the streets as soon as it's ready, this item that we're presenting to the board is to get us a little more time to develop the new bid, but we have to build in the flexibility for what we know is coming down the pike. We're working with a new ed tech consultant. That ed tech consultant is surely going to bring some recommendations as regards furniture and fixtures to support a technology-equipped classroom. And so we're going to have to build a greater degree of flexibility in this furniture bid than has ever been had here before. So we're working on that. We know that we have to equip the traditional classroom. We have to be prepared to do that, but we also have to be prepared to move in new directions, and we have to be prepared to equip the offices in ways that promote efficiency and effective workforce.
Thank you.
I think it'd be interesting to include the concept of stand-up desks or stand-up workstations also. Saying. I don't know if I'd go that far. All right, moving on, water treatment.
Yes, I have a question. And Mr. Cleaver, this may be best directed to Mr. Moore, but just a couple of questions on here. Every cooling tower has a blowdown line in the mechanical room with a solenoid valve that normally fails open and drains the barrel before we realize it. So is this chemical treatment company, who's checking that solenoid valve?
Good thing you stayed awake for the fun. If you could turn that on, sir.
I think this is it.
There we go.
The company ChemCal has been with us for 3 years, and they have a system in place that allows us to monitor all blowdown, all water flow. It sits at our control desk. We actually have an alarm system on it. If it goes past a certain point, then there's a flag raised for our control desk. Those alarms actually are captured every morning. We come in. I don't know if it's on like a night pager or something, but they're reviewed every morning as we come in. As our team comes in at 5:30.
Do we have a water meter on the makeup water line and the blowdown line?
We do not have water meters on all makeups. That's something we're actually looking at to take forward.
Okay. Are we going to, in the future, so we're looking at that, would we tie it in with the internet so you could remote monitor that?
Yes, it will be a part of our building control system, which is, right now we're trying to decide whether to go apply that to our building automation system or actually make it a part of the ChemCal system. Both companies are actually developing proposals for that. As a part of this whole water initiative we're actually pushing right now, we're putting together right now.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
All right, any other questions on this? All right, the next item is the grounds maintenance supplies and related items. So this is chemicals and soils, quick dry for those softball and baseball fields.
But not the playground mulch bid. This is different. That's a different bid.
This is for more for athletic fields and.
Yes, ma'am.
Hence my reference to the quick dry, which we'll need a lot of this week. Any questions on this one? All right. Donations exceeding $10,000. Do we have any questions on this? Say thank you to Chevron. And thank you to the Scanlon Oaks PTO. Any questions on this? Any questions on the minutes? Any changes for the minutes? I won't ask did anybody read the minutes?
Can we refer to them as hours instead of minutes now?
I am not offended too much by that remark. So, we have audience items. Do we have any audience items, Mrs. Porter? Oh, no, we don't have any audience. Rats. We outlasted them. But they'll watch online. I know they will. So we'll need to end this meeting with a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor,
Aye.
please say aye. Passes unanimously.